Hi, Mira here from Buzz Career Counselling. Now, I just wanted to put onto a video because these are things that I say quite often to clients about their resume. So, a couple of things I just want to go through, some important points about your resume. Just first of all, there's a difference between a CV, curriculum vitae, and a resume. Now, CV is actually an outline of your full history. So you can't leave anything out of a CV. They will expect from A to Z of everything you've been doing, whereas a resume allows you to sort of put forward what you need to put forward. They still want, some history. We're usually only going back about 10 to 15 years. And a resume is allowed to be sort of a bit more skills orientated as well. Whereas a CV is really like this is your life in your career. Whether the people who are asking for it understand the difference between CV and resume, I'm not sure, but usually I kind of give a fairly sort of formal resume anyway, just to make sure to cover both sides. So chronological resume is to go backwards. So if you are putting your order of your work history in chronological order and then flip it. So it's reverse chronological. So you start with what you're doing now and then you go backwards. Okay, so the most relevant is now and then what you did 10 years ago. As far as layout goes, don't get too technical with all the templates. I see a lot of resumes and they all come in very, very differently. I have a Mac, I also have a PC, so how they are sometimes read on different programs can be quite different. So make sure try sending it to someone else and have a look at what it looks like other than your computer. Sometimes if people are downloading templates from the internet can get a little bit techie unless the person who's reading it their computer is up to the same standard, and it can be sometimes just makes it too complicated. So just keep it fairly simple really with your templates. Font size 10.5 is really the minimum, but 11 would be better, or 12, but usually about 11 if you've got a fair bit to say. Something that's easy to read. Okay, we don't want to sort of get too expressive of your individuality in the text when people can't read it easily. Keep in mind with all of this, you sometimes get a 20-second scan, so that's like 10 seconds, 10 seconds, back again, done. That's all you get. So, make sure it's not too busy with other stuff. We don't want to be too fancy with font. We want it to be easy to read. Arial or Vedana, however you say that, Helvetica, I like to use that one. Sometimes you can choose another font that will squash it up a little bit, but don't make it too condensed because then it's too hard to read. Keep in mind scanning. The other point is sort of use your headings. You want it to be easy for people to. I'm a bit like the newspaper. I go to the back and I go to the front and I flip, looking for what I'm looking for. I don't read it in order. There's an expected sort of layout for a resume, and I think people's brains are expecting similar to, where to find things, even on 2 or 3 pages. So, but use your headings. Make your headings quite clear so I can go to where I want to go to very quickly. So use your, don't underline, probably it's gone out the window, more bold or just size, okay, for your headings to make it clear to read. Keep that font, keep it all similar or a sort of a complementary font, but otherwise just keep, if you don't know those in graphic design, otherwise just keep the font all the same. It's too much for people's brains. You want them to focus on you and what you've done, not your resume layout. Said that one, consider how it looks visually. Okay, so don't get too hung up and then visually it sort of looks messy or it looks empty. Both can be sort of distracting. I haven't got one, I'm not even holding one up, sorry, but just sort of print it off and see what it looks like visually. Is it too much? We can pull some off. Not enough, we need to kind of pump it in a bit. How will the headings stand out? Yes, general layout and flow of the document and what fits on the page. So I'll do another post about headings, but I tend to say, okay, let's just keep that in for now, but we're not going to go 2 and a bit pages just for the sake of putting something in that's not really, your best work anyway. So we sort of tend to put on everything down, what we need to, and then kind of make it fit into 2, I would say 2 pages would be enough, really. 3 at the max. No 6-page resume. No one's going to read 6 pages. You can share that in an interview. Resume is to get the interview, to get the job. Okay, so we don't need to put absolutely everything there. What's relevant for them? Yeah, so what's page 1 for most readers, not myself, but page 1 really needs to kind of be your highlights. So if your education is impressive for the job you're going to, put that on page 1. Okay, if your education's not really relevant, then it can go down the back on page 2 towards the end. If the job you've got at the moment is impressive, then make that your first section. And then put sort of skills down the side or whatever it might be. Or you might have accumulated skills from years ago and that's what's going to impress your reader, then, make sure we can see that. So resumes don't have just one template. When I do workshops, people say, can't you just tell me when, and I'll fill in the missing. So it doesn't work like that because you're going to have a big gap because that doesn't suit your experience or skills. And yet the person sitting next to you needs to present it in that way. So it's got to be about you and where you're coming from and where you're going. So whatever's impressive, have on that very first page. Colours. Don't get too colourful unless you're maybe graphic design, like something where colour is important. If you think that the reader is going to be impressed by a colour, bubbly, vivacious sort of personality, then sure, throw some colour in. But again, we don't want to get too, it's very colourful, but we're not reading what's going on. Okay, we want them to read the actual content. So don't be too distracting. But, if you think it's suitable and appropriate for your industry, then, add some colour. I certainly add just a little bit of colour, in your headings maybe, something that sort of represents me. Spacing, yes, don't make sure your sort of line spacing is too condensed. You can maybe, a paragraph, you can sort of have it a little bit closer and then, do your paragraph spacing, enter after your paragraph, but 1.2 to 1.5 would be more than enough. Sometimes when I'm doing dot points, I'll put a little bit more space in between them just so it's easier to read, but get someone to read it. They'll say, that's too squishy. When it's too squishy, I don't want to read that part. Okay, so that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to eliminate people skipping over areas that you really want them to read. So get someone to read it and go, that's too busy. It looks a bit empty. What's their opinion of just the layout and how it looks? And don't forget your margins, 2 centimeter margins. I sometimes squeeze in a 1.8 margin on the right if I just want a word to fit in. But generally 2 centimeter margins is nice and clear just to give you that bit of space. We don't want the entire page jam-packed with content. Give a bit of breathing space. All right, that's just a little bit of tips on your resume or CV presentation and layout, just those sort of more technical sides to it. I hope that helps. There's more to come. See you.